First sector, as you would expect with the Red Bulls, they've put on softer tyres, so they both have personal bests in the first part of the lap. Can Albon, Sainz, Alonso do anything about Lindblad? Sole rookie in the field, currently in 16th place.
Albon's the first to have a shot, and he is improving around this lap. Sainz is going quicker in the other Williams. They're both desperate to get this car through into Q2, just to run it again and see if they could pick off any stragglers further on into qualifying. As we watch Max Verstappen harvest in towards turn 11. That's the Mercedes trick then from yesterday. It will pay him back on the exit of this corner. So here he goes, waiting, then feeds it in, and now he's got the battery where he wants it by harvesting in towards turn 11. So you're still into a trade-off as Sainz finds more time in the middle sector. This is looking good for Sainz.
So, yeah, it was very audio visible, the early lift into that turn. Manages to spot his braking nicely into the final hairpin.
So Albon improves to 16th place. He drops Lindblad into the elimination zone. Hadjar goes up to 7th. Like-for-like comparison then with Max Verstappen, who goes into 4th with the fastest final sector. So that was well judged. Final sector, all straights and a hairpin. Sergio Perez. They're the 6 to go in the first part of qualifying.
Well, they made a fight of it, and he put some other cars under pressure, had to respond right at the end of that qualifying session. But yeah, the difficulties continue for Williams.
Martin as well.
Alex Albon, Carlos Sainz, long-term project at Williams with the hope that the new rules could bring something different. And instead, Formula One's 5th fastest team from last year has stepped back into the drop zone, and they're included in the conversation that they're out in the first part of qualifying, along with Cadillac and Aston. The order in full: Charles Leclerc ahead of George Russell, then it was Kimi Antonelli ahead of this man's teammate. It was Max Verstappen 4th, Lewis Hamilton 5th, then it was Norris in P6. Impressive laps under pressure for Gabriel Bortoleto and Franco Colapinto. Bortoleto in 7th, Piastri 8th, Hadjar in 9th, Colapinto in the top 10. Then it was Behrman, Gasly, Lindblad. Again, another young driver responding under the pressure of having to improve and making it work. Ocon, Hulkenberg and Lawson. Lawson getting through by a couple of tenths. He's one of the stars of the sprint race earlier on. Confirmation then that in the drop zone, Sainz, who was only 1.1 seconds back, so not miles off at all. Albon really frustrated. He was a really dejected character in the pen, speaking to the media earlier on. Alonso, Bottas out-qualifying Stroll, and his teammate, Sergio Perez. Two-time winner around here. Fernando Alonso, 2-time world champion as well. But Alonso back into the garage. The only driver left on the grid who was taking part in the inaugural race here in 2004. Max Verstappen seemingly a lot
Carlos saying, look, we know it's not you. It's about sorting the car out. And hopefully they can and get themselves back in the midfield fight, because Sainz wasn't miles away from it there. I think really was dragging the most of the performance, but they're just not there. On the other side, I think Aston Martin were further away than I was expecting them in the end. And credit to Bottas for jumping one of them.
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas was the quicker Cadillac driver all the way through last week until qualifying, and then Sergio Perez found something on him. Bottas, his aim tomorrow will just be to finish. He's not done that in either sprint or the Grand Prix so far this year. Green light at the end of the pit lane. Time for Q2 in Formula One for Grand Prix qualifying, the second round of the year at Shanghai International Circuit. Charles Leclerc on track and in your pitch.
Yeah, Lando Norris, I think we saw him go out on a set of scrubbed tyres. Verstappen's gone out in a brand new set of the soft compound, so wanting to get a feel and get a time early in the session.
Yeah, they've got 3 sets of new soft to use. The front guys, they used them in sprint qualifying yesterday. So most of the field, you're right, DC, have gone out on a scrubbed set, and they're going to bolt on a new set later on. But Max and Isaac Hadjar, the 2 Red Bulls, have gone straight out on a new set, and that's either going to mean that they've only got 1 set for Q3, should they make it, or they're going to wait in the garage if they do a good enough first lap here. So a little bit of pressure to give themselves a fair crack at Q3. They need to deliver on this first run.
The incident at turn 15, potential impeding, no further investigation. So good news for Gabriel Bortoleto and Isaac Hadjar.
Did we see that?
We did not.
We didn't need to, which is the good news.
There's not going to affect things as we make our way into the second part of qualifying. Both drivers listed taking part, and we are watching Kimi Antonelli. So in sharp contrast, when they were last out, Mercedes going to work on the used soft tyres nice and early in this part of the session.
It's reminded me of that incident yesterday. Lando Norris into Kimi Antonelli at turn 1 and said, I was on a push lap. And they went to go see the stewards afterwards, and then Lando explained that he was on a sort of pushing build lap instead.
Yeah, and now you ask, not so much of a push lap.
It was push for a build.
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, nothing came of that. You've got to sort of save your shots at calling the referee to give a penalty. You save them for when they really count.
Lando Norris immediately with the racing driver's instinct to get on the radio, but nothing coming of that. And if you impede a driver on a lap, that doesn't really count. You wouldn't expect that. Although we did see a couple of years ago in Qatar, Max Verstappen given a 1-place penalty. Anyway, let's consign that to the history books and watch Kimi Antonelli around the final corner of the racetrack. George Russell's going quicker in the first sector. You'll be intrigued to see in this session whether Antonelli can get closer. Remember, if he takes pole today, youngest ever driver in the history of the championship. Hadjar for those to run, and let's see how Piastri stacks up. Piastri goes behind both, as McLaren do not have the performance, either the understanding of the Mercedes power unit at the moment or the chassis performance. They're behind both Mercedes and Ferrari with the chassis performance, and they do not know how to exploit the power unit like Mercedes do at this stage of the season. Hulkenberg goes into 9th. Russell is topped by 0.3 of a second. Hamilton is ahead of Charles Leclerc. Remember last year, 19.5. Charles Leclerc out-qualified Lewis Hamilton across the season, so that's unusual in their time as teammates. And we saw that yesterday in sprint qualifying. Antonelli with more time to find later on. Verstappen found himself 5th fastest, and he used a new tyre to do so, as over the line and into 6th position, Oliver Behrman, ever since he got to the second half of the season last year, a driver full of confidence, personal best in Grand Prix racing of 4th last year, and he's 6th in the order at the moment, 6/10 off.
Big wheelie from Bortoleto, long way off the final hairpin, so he's obviously had quite a dump of power.
You mentioned Hajar oversteering on this exit here. Let's see how Lindblad gets on. He's on the edge of spinning up those rear tyres, but that looked pretty good from Lindblad, not having to correct the car like he was out of the final turn there. Runs to the line and goes 12. But Red Bull don't look like they've really moved on from where they were yesterday. When you consider that's new tyres with Behrman on new tyres, he split them yesterday. He's splitting them again right now. Gasly out-qualified the Red Bulls, so let's see how this Alpine goes.
Always lively when we join Pierre Gasly trackside on a qualifying lap. The one-time Grand Prix winner. He started on a Formula One front row on one occasion in his career. Had a couple of races with Red Bull for a long time. Half a season with them, but for a long time he's been a midfield runner, and he gets ahead of Hajar and Piastri. Colapinto had a good lap earlier on to get into Q2, but at the moment he's a couple of tenths back on his teammates' effort, currently in 13th.
Colapinto still chasing things in the second Alpine. Lawson feeding in the throttle, a couple of cars ahead will just unsight you, especially when one's not doing the same bit of track as you, heading off to the pits there.
Looked like he was slightly wide of apex, looked almost like he was understeering.
Well, he's ahead of his teammate, but not by much. 100ths of a second between Lawson and Lindblad.
Yeah, for the future of his career, he needs to be in front of Lindblad. He's not going to be a lot, because clearly there's a lot of speed with Arvid, but that's exactly what he needs to be.
Really by more than a couple of hundredths, I'd say, given Lindblad's struggles so far in terms of mileage this weekend. 1 hour of practice for everyone, but just 2 flying laps for Arvid Lindblad. No time in the sprint. Racing Bulls still with a competitive enough car, but they're not quite where they were in Melbourne.
Lawson using old tyres, according to our tyre graphics, so that would explain the gap, because you wouldn't expect it to be a couple of hundredths, given the weekend that Lindblad's had so far.
That makes a little bit more sense. Same is true for a lot of the front runners, which includes Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, 10th place, under pressure in theory, but in reality hasn't used new tyres. Also Pierre Gasly then not on new tyres, so a great lap from him to get ahead of Oscar. That is a shiny new set for him this time as he heads out. Plenty of time on the clock. So McLaren throwing no caution to the wind, not waiting for the last little bit of track evolution, making sure that they're nice and safe out there and are in control of their own destiny.
Yeah, they should be comfortably able to make it through into the top 10 shootout, but it does feel early, you know, other than getting some clean track, there's always a risk, of course, that you're starting a lap as others are coming out of the pits.
The problem is when you've only done a banker lap enough for 10th, it doesn't take much for you to wait for the better bit of track and end up having a yellow flag because someone's had a spin or a breakdown, a mechanical somewhere, or even a little bit of traffic, and suddenly a McLaren is needlessly under pressure. We know the field spread is bigger this year. That McLaren qualified 3rd yesterday in the hands of Lando Norris, so we know they've got the pace to comfortably be through.
Piastri winding up, getting the battery into the state it needs to be. One Grand Prix pole positions, and he started that record here last year when he took his first and went on to win the Grand Prix.
A bit of weaving there just to try and maintain temperature in those tyres, creating friction. They get all that information available to them on the steering wheel, so they'll know where they are on pressures, surface temperatures, and they just need to make sure the state of charge is correct as they then launch the lap. Not much to do.
It's so complicated at this stage. We saw the fan fall out of Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes a week ago, and Lando Norris said he only hit it because he's got so much work to do on the steering wheel. He was looking down the part of the circuit where you'd normally be looking ahead.
He was looking at the speed he was doing to try and work out where he had to brake for the turn 3 hairpin. I mean, that's how difficult it is with the deployment being different lap to lap, almost corner to corner. You can't just know it's about 100 meters, and if I'm really brave, I'll brake at 95. It can change by 10, by 15 meters, and that's why sometimes you see people not even nearly making the corners.
You heard on board the underside of the car scraping over the bumps through 7 and 8 for Piastri, who's a tenth and a half back on George Russell. Will be comfortably what he needs to get through into the top 10 shootout, which is the minimum he expects every single time he turns up at a weekend. Charles Leclerc going very, very quick. Again, you can hear the bumps coming out of the long turn 13. Now it's time to drain the battery all the way down. And then cents of a second between Piastri and Leclerc's effort at that stage. Hamilton looked good over one lap, but he's 800ths in arrears to his teammate. Ferrari's first and third at the moment, both Mercedes on outlaps. They'll get the right of reply. And over the line we go with Lando Norris. And he is ahead of his teammate in P5. If you're in the drop zone, it's time to start attacking the racetrack on new tyres if you've got them.
Yeah, not much time left for them to do so. But I would say, again, I don't doubt Mercedes have a little bit more, but the consistency of the Ferraris delivering lap time, they seem to be on top of their systems a lot better than maybe McLaren.
This is better from Ferrari, isn't it? I feel like they're closer. I still think Mercedes, when they wind it up on new tyres, are going to put some distance between them and the rest. We'll see that in just a few moments' time. You can see on your left-hand side, Antonelli through the first sector, and Russell's getting there as well, although he's not doing it very quickly on this attempt. Ferrari look much better off. Will they be able to pick off one Mercedes if one of them doesn't nail it in Q3? They've put a gap to themselves and McLaren.
Nico Hülkenberg has a wonderful record of making it through into the top 10 shootout here. He's only missed out once in the last 6 runnings of the Chinese Grand Prix. That's the last year that we ran this race. He only made Q3 once last year. So pick your favourite stat. He's in the mix at the moment with Isaac Hadjar, a 10th up, 2/3 of the way round. Your battery management is absolutely crucial. Have you, with the team, managed to define when you need to recharge? Do you still have enough around the final corner and across the line? He's missed out by 0.02 of a second. Hülkenberg falls at the second hurdle.
There are plenty going much quicker behind him as well, so that drop zone is going to shuffle around. I feel like Hadjar's got to find some pace, and he is.
Antonelli goes top. Isaac Hadjar is on the brink at the moment. Plenty who could cause him a headache behind, including Gabriel Bortoleto, his old sparring partner in Formula 2 a couple of years ago. This is the driver from Paris, who was third on the grid last week in Melbourne, and he remains in P10. Max Verstappen in 7th as it stands, goes up to P6. Bortoleto is the next driver to come across the line in the Audi. He's been capable of real pace.
and go. But they're just checking to see if that is the source of George's issues.
If it's a bigger problem with the active aero, that could affect the battle for pole position. Mercedes looking at the front wing for George Russell, out in the second part of qualifying. Hulkenberg, Colapinto, Ocon, Liam Lawson, Arvid Lindblad and Gabriel Bortoleto, who had the spin. We have our top 10 shootout sorted, understood and ready to attack the racetrack. Antonelli, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Oliver Behrman and Isaac Hadjar. Of those that have joined our main contenders, the midfield bolters, if you like, this week, Pierre Gasly. Q3. It is time to start Q3 in a few minutes. We'll be setting the sharp end for the second Grand Prix of the year. Before we do that, let's get some analysis and some insight from Ruth Busker.
Fascinating session, and congratulations to Behrman and to all the cars that managed to sneak through in that session. 0.903 off the fastest in that session, which was Antonelli. Now, George Russell set his fastest lap on the first run on used tyres, complaining of contact. The mechanics there in the garage trying to get him out on track. Now, if he can fix that, he's in a great position because Mercedes have 2 new soft tyres. They've saved 2 of their 4 sets for Q3. So have Ferrari, so have McLaren. Now, interestingly, Red Bull, they've made some progress since this morning, but both Red Bull cars, Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar, who got through to Q3, only have 1 soft set left. Same as the other cars from the midfield. It's interesting to call Max Verstappen a midfielder, isn't it? That's a new one. Or going into this session, I'd expect 2 runs of 1-time lap. Guys that have 2 new sets will go new, new. Everybody else is going to go used, new. I can't wait to see if those Mercedes guys can manage to fix that real front wing. What about you, Jakesy?
I want to see a fair fight for pole position, Ruth, as Flavio Briatore pat on the shoulder for his Argentinian driver Franco Colapinto, who missed out in the end by a couple of hundredths of a second. So getting closer, but ultimately we know it's going to be close at the end of Q2. Certainly feels like the gaps have come down. I say that with trepidation, DC, because we know what Mercedes can do in Q3.
Well, this is what we're about to find out. I think they were always going to be confident they'd be in a situation where they'd be in the final part of qualifying. So have they got a bit more they're going to deploy, or genuinely have Ferrari been able to use the experience of the sprint to make some modifications to the car? They come out of Parc Fermé, then go into Parc Fermé in this qualifying session. So, yeah, I'm enthused by the fact that they definitely seem closer. I was also encouraged to see that Flavio's doing cuddly.
I knew you were going to remark upon that. He didn't do that the first time around, did he?
No, I think maybe the reviews from Drive to Survive have come in and he's gone, maybe I need to be a little bit nicer. Not nicer, that he is nice, but I mean a bit cuddlier.
Modern management from Flavio Briatore.
Show some affection.
Who'd have thought it? Green light at the end of the pit lane. The top 10 shootout, Q3, is underway. And the the drivers are heading out onto the circuit. Shiny new Pirelli tires attached to the car. Lewis Hamilton has looked a lot happier with this type of Formula One regulation set. If you consider that he had a couple of wins in the ground effect era, but we were used to seeing him win week in, week out. Look at low speed corners there. The Ferrari is very quick, and it's Russell stopped.
Jumping's not right.
Looks okay now.
It's not. Just check boost. You've got massive engine brake in here.
So you've got the new hazard lights on the car for this year, but the crowd in consternation. The dominant man so far, 2 wins from 2 in Formula One 2026, is static. He's not out, he's not done. But David Coulthard, Mercedes need a reset, or we are going to have a new pole sitter, a new name at the front.
Well, the upside of modern Formula One, he has the ability, if he can reset, to start that car using its own electrical energy.
He's moving, yeah, he is moving. Had a look out of the commentary box, and George Russell has got a fix from the team. Now, reported a problem.
Still not happy. Single gear, no acceleration. This might be a limp mode to get him back to the pits. Long way to go.
Yeah, long way to go when you are at this, as DC describes, a safe mode just to crawl back. The door swings open for a moment of Formula One history. The youngest ever Grand Prix pole position holder is 21 years of age.
Cannot skip the gears. Stuck in fast.
Well, first they'll get him home, get him back to the pits. That's going to take a couple of minutes, though. So unless they can find another reset whilst he's out on track, it may well be he needs to come back into the pits and be plugged into the umbilical and see if that refires the system.
He's not out of it, but he is going to have a compromised Q3. There is a major headache for Mercedes to solve, and Kimi Antonelli, 2 clean laps here, could rewrite the record books. Monza 2008, Sebastian Vettel, the youngest driver to ever take a Grand Prix pole. Kimi Antonelli is 19 years of age. Can he find 2 clean laps up against the Ferraris and put his name at the front of a Grand Prix field for the first time in his young Formula One career? That is what is now on offer for the boy from Bologna, who was rushed through, skipped Formula 3, had a single year in Formula 2. Toto Wolff did not want him in a midfield team, wanted him in the Mercedes Works team. And can he now carry the team's colours to the front? The time to beat for everyone out there is a 1:32.322. If they can't, Antonelli rewrites the record books over to Ferrari. And they've looked much better this weekend compared to last. They were scrapping for sprint.
Electronic reset. The only other thing that could explain not being able to shift gears, of course, is a hydraulic issue.
Lewis Hamilton fighting his teammate. He's having lively moments all weekend long. We go through 9 and 10, he's flopping all over the place.
Yeah, we saw that earlier in this session, but it came, let's say, there. He went into the oversteer moment. That was on power. He's corrected, taken him out onto the curb, picked up some dust, kept his foot in, and there's further movement. And then when he's break down into 10, it was tidy there for Leclerc. You can see him fighting the wheel of acceleration.
That is the sound of a turbocharged engine of Pierre Gasly. 50-50 split between electrical power and the internal combustion engine in Formula One in 2026. Gasly just been swinging for the fences all the way through. He's coming up to the 16th and final corner of the racetrack, and it's used set of tyres for him, so he's going to have one punchy run later on. That's to get his eye in. That's why there's a 1.7 second gap. Lando Norris fully attacking on. This is new tyres. This is second on the grid for Norris, who came alive in the top 10 shootout yesterday and does so once more. Piastri slightly on the back foot so far. You come to Q3, you come to the front row. The Australian driver on pole position a year ago steps forward when it matters. Now to the Red Bulls. Can Hadjar get up there? Sixth position, and Max Verstappen is over the line. He goes ahead of his teammate, and it's Kimi Antonelli with a 2/10 buffer. Oscar Piastri ahead of his McLaren teammate. We will get to George Russell in a moment. It's Ferrari, Red Bull, old tyres for Behrman and Gasly, and there's no time on the board for the man who's topped every single session for 7 days in Formula One. Is that about to change?
Yeah, well, the wheels came off and they've gone back on. If they felt they're thinking about putting underneath that car, that isn't a good sign. But that said, the blankets have been taken off.
There's clear, fervent chatter you can hear and see.
That's the umbilical cord, the connection from the car back to all of the main frame systems.
So Russell has made Q3, so it would be 10th on the grid. Steering wheel change now as they seek to find an answer.
It seems like let's try everything, let's throw everything at it.
So the electronics on the steering wheel sometimes can have a different impression. Very expensive, those steering wheels, by the way. It's not a cheap spare to throw at the car.
No, not at all, but just actually reflecting. You could hear the engine running, and I think that was very much a case of they were trying to engage a gear whilst on the short stands.
Well, Russell will go into a one-time lap situation. He will stick to the sequence, but will he have a car underneath him to attack? We will see whether Oliver Behrman can hang on to P8. Gasly did not have a new set of tyres. He will get that, we believe, for the end.
Well, that's reassuring for both Haas and Alpine that once again, like we saw yesterday, Behrman and Gasly being in the hunt for that top 10, not looking based on that they're fighting the Red Bulls, but they're certainly fighting each other.
Lando Norris emerges from the pit lane. We're looking outside the commentary box window to see whether George Russell will take to the racetrack. Others forming up in the queue, slowly trailing out onto the circuit. Antonelli has gone, Russell has not. 4 minutes to go. There's Marcus Dudley, he's race engineer. Here are the Ferraris.
That didn't look like a face of someone that felt they'd solved the problem. We're looking directly down into the Mercedes garage from our commentary box as all of the other cars go out to start their prep laps. No movement from Russell's Mercedes.
Ticking down. The team continuing to look at the side of the car as you look at Max Verstappen taking to the circuit, currently in 6th position, a second away from Antonelli's benchmark. Antonelli will know that 2/10 puts him close, but not certain. Piastri, 6 pole positions in Formula One. Lando Norris knows how to get there as well. 16 times he's been at the front, and still Russell remains in the garage. Antonelli going early, so You can see there his personal best, a couple of front rows, including last week. And he hopes to repeat it once again.
This is his best chance. Still not seeing any movement in that Mercedes garage or Russell. Yeah, now there is. Now Russell's car is being dropped down.
So a split moment for the two Mercedes. Russell ventures into the pit lane. Antonelli goes across the line. He will have 2 runs at this one. Russell will have 1. The 19-year-old versus the championship leader. A pole position on the line. And Antonelli's been put in the shade a little bit. In the last couple of days, we've run a sprint race. We've run a Grand Prix. We've had some qualifying sessions. And Antonelli is 100th back on his personal best through the first sector of the racetrack. The McLarens have stepped forward. Can Antonelli leave them all out of reach?
Well, this could be strategic, of course. He could have realised as Norris goes marginally quicker in that first sector. But remember, it's all about how you harvest, how you deploy, how you deliver the overall energy that you can for the lap. And, well, as he goes about a little bit quicker in the middle sector, not many corners now could stand between him and his first pole position in a Grand Prix.
It would be a big moment if he could achieve it. Norris is not far away. Antonelli looking for a clean lap. Norris looking for a great lap. It would have to be something sensational for McLaren or Ferrari to deny Mercedes, but Russell is on an outlap. Antonelli is hoping to seal some history now. A little correction of the steering wheel. He said he got a bit emotional sometimes when he was in the fight at the front last year. This is his second season in Formula One. Kimi Antonelli to the line, and Antonelli takes it further away. Is that the lap to become the youngest ever Grand Prix pole position holder? Norris will have something to say about it. Antonelli holds the fastest time with 30 seconds to go. Norris comes across the line. He can't improve his position. He can't climb to the front row. What about Charles Leclerc? 27 pole positions in Formula One. It won't be pole position this time, but it is a front row. Lewis Hamilton tries to fight back. Across the line we go. He climbs to the front row, to the joy of the crowd. And now Gasly on new tyres, pushing on. Gasly gets ahead of the Red Bull pair with another fine lap in a weekend that's been full of them. Behrman now gets up to 7th. You've got the Red Bulls, they're pushing on, and George Russell is at the bottom of your picture. Can he do anything to displace his teammate? A car that was ailing at the start of Q3. Over the line with Isaac Hadjar, he gets ahead of Behrman. He would have expected that. The checkered flag is waving. Next up is Max Verstappen, who's into 7th. Can Russell find purple sectors when it matters? We're going to get an answer. He's got to find a 1/10 of a second, or it's history for Antonelli.
Yeah, he was a little bit wide coming out of the throttle application of 12 into 13. Has he saved enough energy to win it back on the straight?
The hairpin of 14 is ahead. Then 15 is an easy squirt on the throttle. A left-hander of 16 is the difference. Russell trying to knock Lewis Hamilton off the front row, trying to take back-to-back pole positions in Formula One, unleashing all of the power. Here comes the question. Is it history for Antonelli, or is it a comeback for George Russell? Across the line, he's missed out. He's missed out. And the youngest ever driver to take a Formula One Grand Prix pole is Kimi Antonelli at 19 years of age. He takes the record from Sebastian Vettel. There is the history boy. Antonelli does it. Russell climbs back to the front row. It's Hamilton in 3rd, Leclerc in 4th, Piastri in 5th, and Norris in 6th. But the youngest Grand Prix pole sitter in F1 history.
That's a pole position, mate.
Yeah, let's go, man.
Woo.
was wrapping our heads around that. Then obviously went out in Q3, stopped on track, car wasn't restarting, couldn't change gear, and then just not really happy to be standing here because started for the last lap, had no battery, no tyre temp, no nothing. So but the team have